All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? It is Saturday, February 8th, 2020. And Ed showed up at the last bit, but you know what? Just in honor of Miss, I'm going to be a paper shredder herself. Let's get the wrap up smear from Pelosi to talk you to it again. And just so y'all know, uh, when she ripped up that instrument, that document, she actually
Destroying public record.
she was destroying public record and a government document. So that's a felony. Ed might be able to help you, but first let's listen to how she talks and talking about a wrap-up smear.
The difference is we don't engage in the politics of personal destruction. The fact is that if we just talk about the issues, for example, I think it would be interesting to people in these districts to know that the Speaker wants to take away the guarantee of Medicare. So I think talking about issues is where we should be. What is the difference in one person being Speaker than another? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident. But I think...
All right. I honestly, you can only handle a little bit of time listening to her. She doesn't even know what the hell she's saying. So let's listen to somebody who does know what he's saying. Ed, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to get into some really interesting topics tonight. But I mean, it's interesting when you sit here and you step back, when you watch these things. Now, you just watched how the Democrats try to impeach Trump because, oh, that's right, he was doing a lawful thing. And I mean the thing of the lawful, and that goes by the Indian Native treaties. If people are really paying attention. So most people are just that damn stupid. I hate to say it, but you're stupid. I'm going to protect my children. I'm going to protect something. I don't know what the hell you're protecting because you ain't protecting life. Because we already know the Bible does not exist. Because you can pray anytime you want. Oh, God's going to come. Oh, God's going to come. But your children are still in the state's custody. Your children, you're not home, are they? Oh, God's going to save me. Who's God? What God? Why is there a God? That's what I just did yesterday on the talk show. Going after these idiots because, I'm on this talk show. I've been on this talk show, probably 100 times. And I'm watching these guys talking about how, you need to go to these organizations. You need to go for counseling. Oh, there's the big one. I mean, only morons go to counseling unless you cannot handle yourself. Okay? All right, because counseling is for people who are not intelligent, not educated, and who are mind-controlled. Because that's the only point counseling works for. Oh, because we're going to go in, we're going to tell them all of our secrets, so the government employee writes it down. They pass it on to the police department. Oh, they wouldn't do that. It's called your rights of privacy. What kind of dumb people do we have on this planet? It's called an intergovernment contract, agency of contracts. And if you look back in real history, and if you have any concept of how this happened, it started with William Jefferson Clinton. We're going to give your information out. We're selling it. That's William Jefferson Clinton, called your Democratic Party. That was proven in the Nancy Pelosi hearing. People don't listen to what the words in these hearings are. They don't listen to the words that these attorneys are doing. Remember, attorneys cannot be in a courtroom. Title 13, and I will be posting that up again tonight, Title 13, so you can read the real laws. See, the thing is, the 13th Amendment was the last amendment that was passed and ratified in the United States unincorporation. Let me clarify, unincorporation. Now, after the Civil War, it became incorporated, and that was the two treaties with the British government. Lawyers, attorneys are one and the same. They'll lie to you. That's their job, is to lie. Just like a cop's job is to lie. Cops are not there to protect you. Type it in, the Supreme Court says cops ain't there to protect you. Even you go back to the Florida case where the school was, shot up, and what happened? The Supreme Court says the cop was not there to protect the children. See, this is what gets to me. Oh, they're going to protect us, and they're doing this for our safety. They ain't doing shit for your safety. That's what shocks me. You people don't get this stuff. And then you go back. So I'm listening to this talk show with these guys going on about how counseling, and if you have a problem, call these two people, they will help you with your counseling problems. Well, it is one of those things that is so damn frustrating when you listen to these people do this because they want to keep you in the system. Because that's how they make their employment, their living, their job is in a system. These men are not free men. They talk about freedom, but they have no clue what freedom is. Freedom means you don't buy a hunting and fishing license. Freedom means you don't buy a driver's license. Freedom is you don't pay the Queen of England for any of these services or the Vatican, and you don't believe in some foreign agency government. That's why I'm working on right now this week. Hopefully I'll have filed Monday because I decided to throw my head in for the county commissioner spot of Lincoln County, and then still got to come up with the $50. That's what I'm trying to do. I can try and do that within the next 48 hours because I have to do that or by Wednesday so I can file. Okay, this is the one thing I want to file. I want to get back into this stuff, have some fun because I want to expose the real laws. And this is the one thing, 42 U.S.C. 1988 allows state common law to be ruled of decision whenever there is no adequate federal remedy. Well, we already know that, but the thing is common law, when you go back to the history of common law, goes to the Queen of England or the King of England. So common law gets ruled on by a judge unless you let common law be ruled on by a jury. That's why when you go file for a court case, you want to file for a grand jury, and then you have to verify the judge has a constitutional oath and a constitutional contract, as well as a constitution bond. See, this is the one thing that you guys got to comprehend this stuff. How this really works compared to the fantasy that you're being lied to and talked into by these other people. It's like, we did find the information on how to write off your water electricity bill. I am working on that on myself. And once I start getting that done myself, and I put my ass in the ringer first, and I prove it, then I'll come out to you. But I'm not going to be like, Miss Johnston and all this other stuff that is on Facebook that are coming out. Send me $150 or $500, and I'll get you off the system. You're already off the system so long as that you're not complying with the system and you rescind your contract and file to own your name. Rob Ryder has a wonderful video up explaining how to own yourself. So does the White House Law Club have a wonderful video on how to own yourself. I filed my paperwork, so I own me. The state don't own me. And I pass this around. I send emails out, hundreds of emails out every other day. Let me put it this way to you. Trump's new executive order restrains the state administration. And yes, the rulemaking, yes, they can still levy fines, revoke permits, seize property, and puts a stop to this, and Trump's order may put a stop to this practice. The only way they're able to seize your property, like your homes, because of property taxes, because you allow it because you didn't file on it. I'm fighting with them on property taxes right now. That's what I'm getting ready to make public. As long as I come up with the basic money to get my name filed, because once I get my name filed, then in an election, I can talk about the real laws and how the administrative rules apply and how statute codes in the British government, still you pay the British government, called the IRS. So, I mean, this stuff needs to be caught up. The only way that's going to be able to be brought up is when I run for office, because nobody else in the elections have the balls to do this. I mean, these guys on the talk show, all I listen to these idiots talk about putting people in the system. I call up and start talking about it, and then all of a sudden the host goes, well, Ed, you know, we already know your point of view, Ed, and, you know, we're trying to do a double talk here. Well, basically what he said, we're doing a double talk, and that's what they're doing. I want to know how much this guy's getting paid by Kate Brown. It really makes me wonder because, you know, he's in Oregon. You know, and he does these talk shows. I've been doing talk shows with him for years. And his deal was always, we got to have the double advocacy, the double talk. And I'm like, this is fork and tongue bullshit. This is what the damn thing the natives had to deal with is these fools that do this shit. Because either you give a shit about your kids and your people around you, you get them off the system. You don't play this mental psychological trauma, so you're doing psychological terrorists or treason on these people, mind control. That's what it is. You're doing a mind control treatment. That's exactly what it is. Oh, what about this? What about that? We're going to throw this off. What do you think? What's your opinion? How about saying, here's the law. Here's the Constitution. Here's how to protect your children. Instead, we got to do this for radio ratings. You know, it's like the mainstream media. These guys are paid by the mainstream media. Gotta be, because why would you sit there and still traumatize the children? So that's the one thing this is the one thing with Trump's new executive orders is bringing us out. Now, when you do your writing, you do your affidavits, put these executive orders in them. See, that is the one thing that you got to realize, because under Title 8 of the British Administrative Rules in Washington, D.C., your city, county, and state get paid by the Queen of England, by the British government. And I've already proven that. We've got it up. I will post that into the website, the YouTube channel tonight again, like I've done the last couple ones, so you can actually read the law. You know, stop lying to your children. Stop lying to those people. All these people doing this, we got to keep ratings going. What kind of morons are you doing this mental trip on your own people in your country? Yes, I'm blunt. Everybody knows I'm blunt. You know, this guy's going, you know, oh, yeah, I've been dead 13 times. I've been in ICU 4 months, and this guy's going on, well, you know, I would have killed you, and you would have never had that opportunity. And it's like, dude, you don't know what I've been living through. You don't know what the trauma is. You don't know how they tried to murder me in jail. You don't know what they fed me in the IVs to kill me in jail, which has been proven by the blood test. So that's what gets to me. You know, the evidence, I post my own evidence up. I post my stuff when I was in the hospital, when I was in ICU. I did talk shows in the hospital when I was on ICU. And some people go, well, we don't know if that's true. I'm on life support and I'm doing a talk show. And, you know, people had to call me in the hospital, verify life. So why the hell would I sit there and make this type of shit up when it can be verified by the medical society? See, that's what stuns me about people. They make shit up, and then they want people to believe it, and they keep telling people if you believe it, it's going to be real. I produce my medical records. I've had 2 broken necks. I have the medical issues I say I do. I posted my medical records up, you know. Even though that violates my constitutional right of freedom, violates my rights to protect my privacy. But see, intergovernmental agency agreements, you have no privacy. They go type your name on the internet and tell me when it comes up how these agencies have your name, your house, your assets, your values. You know, I'm fighting on 2 of them right now, still trying to get my name off their deal, and they got me in their deal. So now I got to go in and I got to write the court case, and I have to go sue them. So, but right now I'm trying to find out who the board members are who own it, and they're protecting that because they're terrified if the board members got out, they lose their job, because it's true, because the board members are actually liable with their homes and assets. And this is the one thing. It's like Dexter Johnson, you know, he's the state attorney general, basically, in a sense, when it comes down to it. Not, what's her name, Kate Brown, sleeping buddy. But he's the one that has a contract for the state and the bond. Now, each state has somebody who owns the state corporation. Remember, your state is a corporation. It is privately owned. Your public laws that you think, your city administrative rules, your county and state, what they call a federal or state law, you think it's a law when it's an administrative rule. Say, that's the one thing. You know, I get these guys all the time, and it's like, you know, here's the way the real life works, the real structure of the Treaty Constitution. No injured party, no property damage, no harm to man, woman, or child. There's no crime. Sticks and stones might break my bones, my names will never hurt me. So I grow up, little children. You know, oh, my feelings got hurt, so I need to sue. Your feelings got hurt, who gives a shit? Stand up. It's like, you know, when I used to get bullied in school, what did I do? I used to be, you know, they used to feed me candy like everybody else, so I became a little fat punk. Little fat kid, because, you know, everybody's got to feed the kid candy, woo! And that's what disturbs me. When parents buy, you know, Christmas and Halloween and all this shit, their kids candy, destroying their bodies with the chemicals that candy is made with. Your teeth, your body, your bones crumble because it deteriorates the fibers in your bones. Read the real history on your candy and the potato chips you feed your kids. I mean, there's one company out of California on their potato chip bags that says, be cautious when you eat this. The potato chips cause cancer. And we do this and we go, oh, well, you know, then we're like, you know, when I get to my age, you know, 60 years old, you start going, well, shit, I'm lucky if I have 20 years. So they say it ain't going to affect me for 20 years by the label on it, so shit, I can do it. But then I eat that crap, and then I have other body and joint pain. You know, arthritis makes it worse. See, I mean, and this is the point that we're going through this trauma that we do to ourselves. And some of this is done by the system and our elected and public servants. That's why when I have arguments with public employees, I go, well, that's your opinion. And I said, no, this is the law. And then I start filing on them. And that's the one thing is I do file. I got some more filings going this week. But right now, I've got to get my filing running for county commissioner against Commissioner Bill Hall. That's going by Claire Hall. Transgender, you know. But, I mean, it amazes me how people don't get it. I don't give a shit if he's gay or whatever he wants to be. Understand this. And I mean understand. Stand beneath my words. What understand means, you stand beneath me, you're not above me. The Constitution gives Bill Hall, Commissioner Claire Hall, the right to be anything he wants. The treaties of the Native Americans that have the treaty of the British government, the founding of your government, where Bill Hall works, where you guys go get your checks from, the State and Federal Employees Union and Government. Remember, the Federal Employees Union is owned by the Queen of England, folks. You know, the federal government is not we the people, folks. That's Title 28USC3002. Go look it up. So the federal government is still run and controlled by the British government. That's the Bankruptcy Act of 1933, bankrupt by the King of England. The King's Bank went bankrupt to we the people, folks. The national debt is not our debt. It's what the British government and Roman Catholic Church and any religious member of a church group owes to pay. Because when you're in a religious group, you're agreeing to the terms to pay off the debt of the Roman Catholic Church because you're a registered nonprofit agency. So you have an agreement to write it off and pay it off. I mean, that's the... I don't know where these people come out. So when these guys are going off on their little talk show yesterday, you know, and I started listening to stuff about them. Oh, you need to, you know, if you have psychological problems, you need to go see a counselor. If you have this medical issues, you could go see basically a medical counselor. So we got to keep you in the system so we have a job so that way you don't have freedom. So the one major point is like I've got this point, you go to our website and you can type in Ed Johnston. You go to my website, you can see what I filed in the newspaper, how I own myself. You can go on the new.org and trackers and go click on how to own your child. You know, if you don't own that child, the state owns it. When a mother registers that child with the state, you give that child up for adoption. Did you comprehend my words? When you register your child, you give it up for adoption so the state can come in and take that kid anytime they want and adopt it out or sell it or trade it, put it in the sex trade. Most of your kids today are in the sex trade by the states. You know, it's slowly coming up in part of the media, but they're in the sex trade because of the state employees. Everybody's making a buck off it. They don't give a shit about your children. I'm here to protect the children. I've never met a caseworker that protects the children yet. I've never met a caseworker that wrote a criminal charge on a man or a woman that harmed a child. Of course, technically, they're an employee that can't write criminal charges like a police officer, a judge, or a caseworker, a CASA worker. They can't write criminal charges because they're not part of the injured party. Their corporation of Title 8. Read Title 8. What is that? Title 8, 3213. Read what it says for once. See, they go by these administrative rules, and then you're wondering why. Oh, well, the cop says he can't write this report. The police department is not there to protect you. Trust me, I know that. Even when I called the ambulance, when I had 3 times, I basically suffocated to death. And 2 of the times, what happens, and this was even last August, when I called up and got hauled in the ICU for suffocating to death with another heart attack. Okay, when I got hauled in the ICU, who shows up first on my doorstep? SWAT. Sheriff's Department with AK-47s. I mean, M15s, AR-15s. Then the ambulance shows up, and they're pointing AR-15s at me when I'm on the gurney having a heart attack. You know, prove it. I've done these concealed. I've asked for these freedom of records. I've written this stuff. I publicize this stuff. You know, I've sent it out to Congress, emails. Even if you want the emails on this, I'll send you the actual emails and the proof. I don't have a problem getting this factual evidence out. But see, most people like you don't do nothing about it because you're not experienced in it, or when it comes down to it, frankly, you just don't give a shit. Because who the hell cares about their neighbors or friends or anybody else? It's all about me, isn't it? My ass is first. I'm not going to put my ass on the sling for somebody else. That's what everybody says. You know, I mean, that's the saddest point we're living today. When you see crime, it's like, my house is robbed by the Toledo Police Department. My neighbors are going, hey, you know, the cops are in your house? I'm in ICU hooked up on life support. They assumed I was dead again. Yeah, ain't the first time that's happened, too. They've been robbing my house since 2013. Of course, with other people, too. You know, that's why I don't trust family. I don't trust anybody. You know, because, you know, what is that? Even family will tell you who are related. Well, I do what Caesar tells me to do. Give Caesar what Caesar's due. You know? So when I'm talking about religious people, they'll turn you over faster than anything in this reality of this world. Because we got to do it to protect Jesus. Some fictitious fantasy bookworm. You know, I mean, that's the one thing. I just was on a talk show, too, even Wednesday. You know, and the guy's trying to drill me about, you know, come on, you had to see something of the other light when you died. You know, I mean, they pulled the blanket over my head, and then I sat up, and they're like, oh. And I said, no, it ain't my time yet. People going, well, you should have saw the other side, or Jesus. Or so. I didn't see nothing, folks. See, a lot of that is psychologically. Go look at your psychiatry books, 101 and Chapter 1, Chapter 9. Go read your psychology books. Oh, that's interpreted into your mind, or even convinced by TV, radio, what people say. Because you assume that this is going to happen. You're going to assume to see this peace and this happening. You know, I mean, that's the point. You know, I've been in situations, yes, I guess you could sort of say, my life flashed in front of my eyes. But as that happened, I saw my exit on the way out in car accidents and stuff like that. how my exit was going to be, how I was going to live. So I look at life. I don't sit there and look at it that, oh, it's going to be this or that. I look at it's reality. How do you survive? Number one. Now, that's the one thing that bothers me when we have so many of these snitches out there, these people that are committing treason, and that includes lawyers and attorneys. Remember, a lawyer and attorney cannot be in a courtroom by law. An attorney or a lawyer can only represent a corporation. So when you're writing your paperwork up, I suggest that you write in your paperwork clarifying to the corporation judge, corporation, British government judge, your God. Remember, your judge is your God. Come on, wake up. That's your God. There ain't no God, because you can pray to God, but the only one who's going to forgive you is that judge. So that's the point. That's why when I file my paperwork, I go after the judge. I want to know the judge's position, and if he ain't registered, file the criminal charges on him. But also, too, it helps when you people see this stuff on Facebook. Like, no. One day when you people grow up and read the Constitution and the treaties and comprehend that if you're native, 5 or more generations, technically 1890 is your bloodline, to the Civil War, remember we have 2 constitutions, one with the British government, same as, and if you don't get it, like the West Coast, we have a treaty with the British government called the King of England, that's the Queen of England now, called the Treaty of 1846. The 1846 treaty says we don't pay hunting and fishing license. We don't pay income and property taxes. Remember, this is a treaty with the British government. That's the same thing with your state taxes right now. That's a treaty with the British government. Kate Brown, the terrorist of Oregon, the acting terrorist governor that I have charges on, that wench tried to have me taken out. Kate, I don't forget what you said to me in 2006 at the Senate and House floor. I'll never forget what you said to me when they tried to murder me. The mayor, and I had the tapes, and we played some of that stuff, and all you people covered it up. And then that so-called attorney, ended up with those tapes, and then he sold them to cover his ass because, I thought he was a friend that was appointed to me with the House and Senate, but then I realized he was appointed to cover up the House and Senate's terrorizing act they do on you people. So, yeah, no, I got an email going to Terry here again on this stuff. I might as well I'm thinking about publicizing his stuff. That way, you can see how it all works. Because, it's like we went after one guy on his property tax for trying to get this stuff done, and the state forecloses and tells him to get off his land or they were going to shoot him. The sheriff did. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting ready to go stand by this guy, and next thing you know, I'm shipped off to California, and I'm stranded down in California. I have no resources to get back up here to Newport to fight some of these issues because I get stranded, and all of a sudden my money's missing again. Family. Be careful who you trust and who you have around you. So, but anyhow, this guy loses his property, and I go after him, even with Rob Yvette, including, Commissioner Bill Hall was there at the time, because Bill Hall or Claire Hall, whatever name that this guy wants to go by, because you can't change his genetics. His DNA cannot be changed. Anyhow, so Bill Hall was dealing with this, and we did a talk show on it. Bill Hall worked for one of the radio stations here. One of the radio stations worked with the judge or the county commissioner that's on the county right now, Doug Hunt, who I recalled on the school board, who embezzled over $100 million from the school system. I recalled him and proved $30 million they embezzled with $150 million guesstimate. It's all proven. You can type it in, Ed Johnson, Toledo, Oregon, recall. So I go after him. And people go, well, I don't know why, if they were after you, should have been already gone. No. There's a lot of reasons, folks, They know the truth. I know the truth. But now we got to play the battle game. And the only way the battle game is going to happen is you people stand. That's like this little girl in Portland that I went after Bundy, bringing all this stuff about this little girl in Portland, She's got to go in for surgery. And I emailed her family, and I emailed Monday, You know, I emailed all the Bundys and said, hey, here's how we can stop this thing. You know, did they give a goddamn rat's ass for that shit? Oh, no. No. We can't go against the system because God won't allow us, because God says we have to do what we're told. Because God, under Romans 13, gave us the government to protect us when the government's a British government that's there to destroy you. Lawyers work for the British government, the Bar Association, the British Accreditation, the King and Queen of England. I've even tried to explain this to Bundys and a whole bunch of people, and even most people don't get it. God is going to save me. God, who's God? What God? Why is there a God? Prove to me there's a God. There is no God. Spell dog backwards. God, dog. So, God's the dog. You know, see, I mean, you know, I can be just as ludicrous on some of my statements as people are. But they write it, I quote it, I bring the facts. I put this stuff up on the Oregon Trackers YouTube channel. I put up the actual laws up there. I put congressional records. I even got the structure on the real 13th Amendment up there. And these other talk show hosts want to argue about the 13th Amendment. And it's like the 13th Amendment gives you rights. The 13th Amendment says there's no such thing as immigration. Comprehend that one? There is no immigration. Immigration are terrorists that come from another country. And we're supposed to give some of these people what they want, a political asylum for what? What do they violate in their country first? What do they do wrong in their country first? Their country's laws that they grew up under. Well, okay. Some of their laws we don't want to agree with, probably like even with some like with execution that China does. But you don't realize what China just did to you. They put this virus out to you. We got this corn virus out here right now, and we've got it in our own country. And it came from, immigrants that came from China. Read the real story. So these people came in our country, so now they're killing your children, and you accept this fact. You know, I can get into so many of these names on these patriot groups, but, you know, it's like what really gets to me is about these people that are so full of shit. If you care about these children, how come you're not writing these court cases up? How come you're not defending these kids in court to protect their bloodline? How come you're not proving? If you're an immigrant, you have no rights. Trump already, wait a minute. Nancy Pelosi just proved that because part of Trump's impeachment was on immigration. Did anybody really read that point? No, people don't read the truth. Because Nancy filed criminal charges on Trump for immigration because he was sending illegals back to their country. Any intelligent men and women out there? Any intelligence? Any people with brains? Concept of real reality? Why don't you realize when she's tearing that shit in front of her hand that our partner here played in the beginning of it? She destroyed public document. The people own that document. She works for the people. Even though she is controlled and run by the Queen of England, the British government, by the monarchy that runs the House and Senate, but under the Constitution and the Indian treaties, 1770, 1776, 1778. Can't forget the Treaty of 1812, the Paris Treaty. Read that with the Indian codes in it. Have you ever read the real Paris Treaty? I mean, I get people all the time that try to tell me stuff about the Paris Treaty, and I'll send them the Paris Treaty, the congressional record. And they go, no, that's not what it says. I said, doesn't it say the United States? What do they call that? United States Historical Records under Congress? So if that's not the law, where are you getting your information? This is what has happened to me, last week on this talk shows, a couple of talk shows I've been on, and watching these people keeping you people prisoners. And you buy this stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm going to start bringing names out, like Francesca, going in and telling you to keep yourself as a contractor to the attorneys and lawyers. How many times did I do this with Dave, and I sent her information and her, Dave, how to get out of the system, and they're doing this where, now they're sort of speaking up to it a little bit, but then they're putting out emails or the stuff on Facebook how, we wrote this and Trump did it, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. And you guys said that you just did this in the last 2 months. Wasn't that structure that I put up 2.5 years ago that we already had public comment with Trump on it a year ago? That we knew it was coming up, and we tried to explain this to people, but everybody went against me, telling people, watch out for Ed, watch out for Ed. Well, let me put it this way to you, folks. They wrote it, I quote it. I do my real history because I cannot put up hearsay. Hearsay is like politicians in diapers need to be changed regularly. Okay? And everybody's got a shitty day or a shitty diaper anyways. This is what so disturbs me, how this stuff gets going on that people don't comprehend. So I'm going to start reading some stuff. I want you to comprehend what the real truth is. I'm going to bring up some other stuff on some facts that you folks need to start reading this stuff and educate yourself. Oh, by the way, for those people that I've got a couple things pending on, I will have them to you this evening. I've been wrapped up in, the other emails going out with this stuff with the city of Portland and the county and the other stuff with the news media because they're trying to put some bullshit out there, so I had to put emails out to cover those tracks to prove, here's the facts, write the truth in the story then. So I'll get your information back to you after here a little bit tonight, and so that way you can get your stuff done Monday. But always, always question authority. And we do have that law, so we have the administrative rules of the Congressional Act and the federal law about questioning authority. And so that when a judge tells you you need to pay this and you need to pay that, well, I need to know what authority is. Always remember, I need a 1099 form. We got to report this income. See, anytime you pay anything to any state agency, your water, your taxi bill, your phone bill, anything, put a 1099 form in it. See, they're collecting that money, and they're a nonprofit agency, so they don't have to report it, so they're just pocketing it, and the IRS ain't going to say a damn thing unless you stand up to them. See, that's what it takes a real man and a real woman to stand up. So many people go, I don't want to get involved, but then when they get in trouble or their family member gets in trouble, they call you for help. And then you go, well, we have to go this direction. And go, oh, I can't do that. And to me, and I've been through that even recently on a couple of calls with people. I asked them point blank, why did you call me then? Well, we thought you could compromise with this. And I said, no, everybody knows me the way I am. Either you go after the principle of the issue or don't waste your time. You can't sit there and people go, well, you can sit there and serve papers. They're going to read it. They're going to accept it. No, once you serve them, now what we're getting ready to do in a couple cases, several cases I'm working on with people right now or helping them with some ideas, is now that you've already served the judge, you got a letter coming back where they want to do another court date with you. So now you serve it above him. They're going to say, well, you can't do that because there was no judgment for you to do that, and that's a lie. You can take it to the Supreme Court of your state and have the Supreme Court justice and serve in Washington, D.C. under Title 8 administrative courts. Because administrative courts are what the judges get their paycheck from, and they violate their own administrative rules. They can't do that because Washington, D.C. won't tolerate it. It says it in their own administrative rules. So when I send this stuff out to people, I guess sometimes it's foolish enough for me to think that some people read it, but I do know that some people do. And I know some people just don't give a damn, or they skim through it, and I get calls from people that are going, well, what about this and what about that? And I said, didn't you read this? Didn't you read that? Well, I didn't see it in what I read it, and I tell them, go back on it and go down to this chapter or that page or this line number, print it, and read it. So let's make it perfectly clear. The only way you can go to court if a judge and a lawyer brings you to court as a corporation. Corporations could only be in the court system because all crimes are commercial. So we want to put in your letter. Can you tell me my corporation VIN number? Isn't it a fact that only corporations can be in court? So are you claiming I'm a corporation? And the reason why I say this stuff specifically like this is to write it in your paperwork, so that way if it does go to the Court of Appeals or if it does end up in a court outside into Washington, D.C., you already have an evidence trail because you have to create the evidence and proof. You can't have hearsay. And I've had people tell me, I said this and I did that, and I said, so that doesn't matter. You're wasting my time because you have nothing in writing. You didn't put anything in writing to put it out there saying that this was your standing. And if you're an immigrant, so long as that you're following things to our Constitution and agreement to be in our country, pay your taxes. That's paying the king and queen's debt. You came in this country, so you have an obligation until you become 5 or more generations to educate your children of how they're going to be free. That's your obligation. If you don't like our country, don't come to our country. Don't come to our country and try to change your ways and belief in our country. We don't want your religion. We don't want your food. Some food's not too bad. But the other point is, we don't want your bullshit in our country. You come to our country to our rules. I cannot come into your country, put my flag in your couch, and say, go get me a beer, and you clean up the house, you're going to do this, that, and the other thing in your own home, and I'm going to dictate to you how it does. Oh, that's right. CPS does that to people all the time. Oh, that's right. You want to be on what they call welfare, so you're going to go through all this. No, that's not exactly true. We're working on that paperwork, too, because by law, they cannot do this. Go in and do these house inspections, inspecting your children and all this stuff. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, I haven't dealt with that, but when I was with my ex and her kids, when they tried to pull that shit on us, I told them, come on in. I might not be held reliable for shooting a terrorist. And they're like, you can't threaten me. I said, I didn't threaten you. What is that? What is that? 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act. If you're not registered, you're a terrorist. Read it. And then by that, if you're a public employee, you have certain credentials that you have to carry, and you have certain obligations you have to do because you get a paycheck from Section 8 of the, what is that called, Section 8? District of Columbia Constitution. And if you've never read the District of Columbia Constitution, where your city, counties, and states are obligated and how they get their paycheck, because when you pay your state and federal income tax, everything goes to the Queen of England and the Vatican. We can prove it. We have the evidence. And I'll put it on the talk show tonight again with the evidence. See, that's why I don't pay taxes. People say, well, the IRS is going to come after you, or the IRS came after me. I said, well, you signed a contract. See, that's the point. You signed a contract, said, oh, I'm claiming this tax write-off. So, and people go, well, I want to go back and get all my taxes that I did. Well, I don't encourage that one, and I'm going to tell you why. Just in your contract, and whatever you paid over the last 20, 30, or 40 years, let it go. Because if you go after them, they're going to find some way that you made an error to come after you. It might take them 5 years to do it, but they will find one way in your paperwork to come after you. Remember, these people get paid to destroy lives. That's their job. Oh, they do that in the name of God. Their God says, I can destroy your life. You're claiming your God is protecting you. That's why, who's God, what God, why is there a God? Whose God are you going to believe? The only God I know is called the Indian Treaties and the United States Constitution that gives us rights. Any religion, any Bible, any book does not give you rights. Period. I've never seen anybody that's ever been able to prove a right in the Bible. God says I have the right to property. Okay, whose God are you talking to? Where is it in writing? How can you prove it? Where's the facts? Where's the evidence of your statement you just said? Did you file your rights? Are you a native? And that's the one major thing that people got to realize, that you have to be a native in this country. And by law of the 14th Amendment, when you actually read the 14th Amendment and the paperwork we send out, including the professor's video that you can type in on YouTube, and we got it, we get it out there, it's on the website, you know, it's called naturalization. Who's naturally born. See, people say, well, I was born in this country, so I was born here. I have a right. No, that doesn't work that way. You might have been born here, but you have to prove how many generations. You know, I know. I've been there. I've written this stuff up. I've been at the Senate and House hearing bills. You know, I spoke against a lot of these Senate and these hearing bills from 1993 to 2017. Brought up evidence, had my own bills on the rights of fish and hunt. How to own yourself has had my own bills on the Oregon State House and Senate floor. Spoken against this and proved the evidence about it. So when people say you don't know what you're talking about, it's like, boy or girl, you better go figure out who you're talking. Like this guy yesterday, you know, trying to tell me, I thought it was interesting, you know, about rights. You know, and how people should go to counseling if they need it. If you need counseling, go to counseling. Just remember, when you go to counseling, you have no rights. Counselor's going to say, well, yeah, you have your constitutional rights and still, yeah, you read the fine print that you just signed. Because when you read that fine print, you're going to actually realize that you just signed your rights over to that counselor. The counselor can do anything they want, say anything they want, because you so autographed that right for them to do it. And that's a real fact. You give the rights to these people to destroy your lives and your children's lives by autographing and doing that. Now, I just did this, that they were sort of amazed or shocked, because I just put myself as a guinea pig for one of the medications that I'm taking for my heart medication. And, you know, I mean, I'm doing this because I'm a guinea pig, because, you know, I've had so many heart attacks, and I live on nitro pills and nitro patches, technically. And so one of the medications is basically another nitro medication that I take. And so, of course, I'm going to be a guinea pig for that, because I'm taking this medication, and I want to make sure that if it's working for me, it's working for somebody else. If it's not working, it's not working. But I've been on the medication for, you know, off and on for a year, and then not until the last several months, because I had to verify what the medication I'm taking. Yes, I do verify my medication. I don't play these games. I do go out and test myself. You know, I get to go in for more blood tests. So, I mean, I do my blood tests. And then that's the other point that I want to bring up to people, for people to come into reality of the real world, is that, oh, we're going to have to charge a carbon tax. Oh, we're going to have to pay this tax. And that's what I keep calling people morons. So people keep saying, Ed, you can't be that rude. I sure to hell could be that rude, because anybody who knows anything about carbon knows that you breathe carbon in, you exhale carbon, trees take carbon, and your body takes carbon. Without carbon, you don't live. And without that, without carbon in your blood, oh, that's right, carbon is in your blood system. And without carbon in your blood, you die. So now they want to charge you a carbon tax to breathe air. And everybody's going, oh, we need to get a carbon tax to protect the environment. That's why I call these people morons. You're saying, I need to tax myself so I can breathe air. And if I don't tax myself, I don't have a right to life. That's exactly what you just told yourself in the world, that I'm a moron, because if I don't pay the privilege to breathe air, I don't have a right to life. That's what I call a moron. You know, you're saying that you don't have a right to life unless you pay the price to breathe air. I'm a carbon tax. We need a more carbon tax, because these factories are putting carbon in their air and they're killing us. Trust me, I live next door to a sawmill. You talk about pollutants and carbons, and you talk about when they blow the steam stacks and how it is trying to breathe, at anywhere from 2 to 5 o'clock in the morning when they blow the stacks when everybody's asleep in town. And you got to have a clear sky out with all the signs of the stars and everything. And they blow that stack out, and next thing you know, you're living in a fog where you can't see 20 feet in front of your eyes. But you go outside of town 1 mile out of the area here where the mill is, it's clear again. But in the 1 mile area, we're living in this polluted air right now at this point when they do that. Cancer causing, because a former news reporter for the Lincoln County newspaper, the News Times, Joel Gallup, wrote about it in the newspapers back in 1993. Yes, I know. I was there when all this stuff happened. We were up at the Capitol. We brought this stuff out. We wrote the structure. I took the videotapes for this stuff for the Senate and House members. Brought the reports in on the pollution and what it does and the cancer it causes. So when people say, you don't know what you're talking about, Ed, and I keep telling people, you don't know what you're talking about because I lived it. I'm the one who was in the charts. That's why they kept on the cops when I was in ICU, kept on breaking in my house and robbing my stuff. Oh, that's right. The mayor's wife works for the emergency room. How do they know I'm in the hospital, that they could do this? I'm in the emergency room. So the mayor's wife calls in and says, hey, Ed's in ICU again. I get out of the ICU, neighbors are telling me, the cops were through your house, and I'm like, oh, great, thanks. Would anybody sign a deal that they witnessed that? And they're going, hell no, we're not losing our job. There's your America right there. There's your Christians. People say, hey, don't credit the Christians bad. These are your Christians. Your Christians are the same as you. You ain't going to jeopardize your job. You're not going to jeopardize your life, your ass. Some of us do, and we know what we're doing. But the average man and woman ain't going to speak up or jeopardize their security. Would you jeopardize your security to defend your neighbor? The cops went in and shot your neighbor. Would you defend them? Cops went in and beat up your neighbor. Would you defend them? Would you swear to an affidavit in the federal Supreme Court? See, that's the point that I get to when I have these conversations with the general public. Or when I write these administrative rules up or these bills I put out. That's the whole point of putting this stuff out, so you get to know what the truth is. That's the one point that you need to learn what the truth is. And so right now I'm putting up on Facebook dealing with the structure of some of these things that I've been putting up on the bills and stuff. And one of the bills that I'm going to be working on when I run for office, because I said I was going to be putting these bills out not long ago. But seeing I decided to run for office, I'm putting them up, and then I'm going to put them in under, I got to crash my computer. I'm tired of playing this damn game. I want to make sure that people get the comprehension of what's going on here when you pass these bills in. These administrative bills. So what I've got one of the bills that I've got to rewrite that I will have written up, finished tonight, and I got to have published by at least Tuesday, because I plan on filing, hopefully, if things work out, Monday for county commissioner. At least if I get the paperwork that I was hoping for come in, because it's $50 for me to register. I would love to get my paperwork registered, and that way I can start putting out the evidence on how taxes are paid, how the income tax comes in, especially how the jails make financial gain off the phone calls. I could prove that in Lincoln County by their own administrative rules and the tax credits and the EIN numbers. I want to publish this stuff out. Think about it. We need to publish this stuff out, because once you get to know what it is, are you going to participate and protect it? I know some of you people like to say, Ed, why are you doing that? Because I invest in the municipality bonds of the tickets. And remember, when there are tickets, until they're paid off, that's why they like to string you in court. Because as long as that municipality bond is open of a traffic ticket or citation or administrative rule, it's still collecting interest through Wall Street and passing it around that it's for sale. It's for sale for the highest bidder, and then the highest bidder goes until it's collected, and that's why they don't want you to collect on it. You know, that's why the state of Oregon, when they put a $75,000 bail on me for Judge Branford, when I told him to fuck off and take his ass and shove it, and this is on YouTube video. So when he had, Mr. What's his name, arrested, kidnapped, and held for ransom for videotaping me in court, and the sheriff comes up to him, this is on YouTube video, says, I'm going to arrest you. And he's like, well, under what charge? He goes, I don't need to have a charge to arrest you. I can arrest you anytime on anything I say is a charge. And that's exactly how they're getting away with this, folks. They're saying they can rape your children, and you want them to rape your children because they get away with it because the law says they get away with it, or their administrative rule. And see, that's what you're saying to these people. Rape my children, rob my kids, hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. And see, that's when these people get away with this shit. And they know what they're getting away with. I always love it when these cops say, well, I don't know that. I wasn't trained in that. And that's what pisses me off. I was a rent-a-cop, policy officer. They sure the hell are trained. And also, too, they are trained how to get out of charges for you not to prosecute them and go, oh, feel sorry for me in the name of God. I didn't know this. And you'll sit there and go, oh, well, I have to show compassion. That's what disturbs me. Oh, I get to show compassion. But you don't show compassion to your kid, your neighbor. Most of you don't. And so, but for a public servant, you'll do that, but you won't do that for somebody else? I mean, Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon Territory, who's not even a governor, who's a domestic terrorist, who's still owned and run by the Queen of England, and if anybody has any education or intelligence, look at your British flag. The British flag is still owned by the Vatican. It's not part of the United States. That's Title 28USC3002. I just find it difficulty to me how people cannot see when it's written, and they have to sit there and justify it in their head like a lawyer. It doesn't say that, and you run them through even with the Bible. Come on, Abel and Cain murdering his brother, and that's acceptable. You know, oh, you read this stuff in the Bible, how these things happen, and it's acceptable. Nobody does anything about it. You know, and that's the point. You're allowing this to happen. You're allowing these rapes to happen. So I'm going to get back here. I'm going to cut into a page here. Let me get into this. I want to get into a couple things. This is the one thing that when you go through these things and you're reading this stuff and you're putting this stuff in, and don't forget that if you do not write your criminal complaint and you do not put it in the structure that you are the corpus delicti, the injured man or woman, and you have to prove you are the injured man or woman, that's the only way you can get into a court case. And see, that's the one thing that you want to be able to prove that. Now, also, too, I want to read this part. I'm going to get into this here in a minute, so these things come up. So I want to read. I'm going to be putting these things up tonight so that way you can see what I'm talking about. So you can actually see this. And then, you know, the one thing is like taxes. Has to be a direct tax. Income tax did not come into effect until 1933, but it was never passed nor ever ratified. And people always say, well, I have to pay this. Ask them to prove it. Now, let's get into municipalities, your city, your county, your state. Municipalities, all local government officials may be sued in his or her capacity under Section 1983, where local government may be sued in its own name. Now, let me clarify this to you. Like with me, I have to sue the mayor himself. Rod Cross, I got to sue him with his name. The police chief. I tried to give these guys benefit of doubt in the last couple of years, but they still told me basically, take us to court, sue us, or else we're still going to put you in jail or shoot you. So now I got to do it, but I figured the best way to do it is I'll run for office and I'll put all this stuff up in my campaign. Here's the law. So seeing that, you know, they're going to have to run this stuff with my campaign because that's the only way they could write it is your campaign. So if I could come up with the money with advertising, I could put some of this stuff in the newspapers and publicize the real laws in the newspapers. Because in that way, I'm just telling the truth. I've done it before. That's the only way that they'll get written. So the police department, misconduct and civil rights. So you can sue the cop personally. Now, once you get a conviction on the cop, then you can sue the city and county. But until you have that conviction, and that's what the actual law says, too. And, excuse me, that's what the law says, and I'll be posting this up in the timeline, in the municipality liability. And it says once you sue the cop and you win, then you can sue the city and county of their policymakers and the final authority for his agency. So that means once you do that, then you can sue the agency and then his boss or her boss. So you got to open up the corporation structure compared to what these people mislead you about, because people go, well, we need to do a class action lawsuit, but a class action lawsuit, once it's closed, you can never bring it again in that fashion, the way it was filed and originally written. But if everybody writes their own and separates it and files it differently in each case, or even the same, as long as one case went through, then a class action could be determined at that point with everybody else who filed. But until I'm explaining to you how the law works, or the administrative works. If people wonder why they don't get their court case, or this gets turned down, or that gets done. And motions is an motion way. Why would you want to serve a motion? I want to serve a demand. I want to serve the criminal charges. I'm not serving a motion. A motion is pleading and asking permission. So also, too, immunity. Police say, and the judges and lawyers say, I have immunity. Well, no, they do not have immunity once you file and prove they violated their oath of office and they've produced harm. That's Title 28. Title 18, 3771, the corpus delicti. So once the corpus delicti has been proven, that means a living man or a woman, then you can do something about it. Okay, false arrest means that when you're kidnapped and held for ransom without a warrant for a felony. You know, and a misdemeanor, they can't do that because the state can't issue a warrantless crime on a misdemeanor, because misdemeanors have no authority, have no court case, have no nothing. A felony does, so long as that you've caused personal or property damage. And I'll be posting this up in the comments in New.org and Tracker's YouTube video tonight. So that way you can actually read the laws. And you can always type in Penal Code 26350. I always love this one. This is openly carry a firearm. I mean, I live in Oregon. I've carried a gun on my hip in Oregon and California. I've been through that where, of course, in California, it was the only time I went through where the cops panicked, and, you know, that in Oregon I've carried for years. Of course, most people around the areas know me, and then when I always other carriers, like when we go hunting, fishing, you know, everybody else was carrying, so nobody worries. We don't panic. You know, and the thing is, if you're drinking or hunting, you know, or partying when you're hunting, everybody's got a gun on their hip. Nobody's going to be that stupid. Everybody gets this fear into you. You know, doesn't work that way. You can put all the fear in the general public as you want, but anybody who's been hunting and fishing and been partying with guns on their hip, they know they ain't going to be stupid enough to do something stupid. Been there, done it, been around people, and you know, we've had stupid people around us to try to do stupid things, and everybody stood up, wouldn't allow it to happen.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
We may not be stupid enough, but evidently our politicians are. Who was it that evidently went on a hunting trip and shot the guy in the face or something?
Shot him in the ass, yeah, wasn't that Bush's, wasn't that the vice president who did that? Yeah, correct. Vice President shot Bush in the ass. I'm trying to remember his name. Why is his name drawing a blank in my mind?
Are you talking about Quayle?
No, the other one.
Bush Jr.'s vice president. Yeah, I can't remember his name either.
No, but yeah, Bush Jr. is the other guy that shot Bush Jr. in the ass with buckshot when they were out bird hunting. It'll come to my mind here in a minute. But a direct tax, this is the one thing that people got to realize with state and federal, what they call income tax or any tax. A direct tax has to be directly on your property, but they can't do that under the Constitution and treaty, and especially the Supreme Court said that in 1895. And that's the one thing. Property tax must fall in constitutional guidelines set forth by the people and the nation. There is no such thing as taxes paid, folks. There are taxes by the Queen of England, by your church, your administrative. Oh God, why can't I've got to type that up here in a minute and find out that name. I can see his face right now, but I've got to go type his name up and bring it up because that's just got me baffled. You know, but anyhow, it's like, this is the one thing that when it comes down to these things, it's like, you know,
Cheney.
How do we stop these things? Go ahead.
Cheney.
Thank you. That's what I was doing, Cheney, yeah. And that's the one thing, people don't get it when these things happen, and, you know, you think that was an accident he shot him in the ass? I mean, I know people are dumb, but, I mean, come on. Any of you people ever been out hunting? And for those who've never been hunting, who don't know what it's like to have firearms in your presence or out there partying or doing something with firearms or target shooting, you have no rights. You have absolutely no rights to an opinion. You have no rights to an opinion because you have no opinion to have a right to because you've never physically done it. You can have psychological trauma from emotions that you get. And that's one of those disabilities they claim. Oh, I saw something, so I got emotional trauma. Sorry, folks. It's not to be rude or disrespectful. I've been in shootouts. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I've been through this shit myself. So when it comes down to it, I just don't get into it, you know, buying the bullshit. So, but a direct tax, this comes down to the results, and this is Fairbanks versus the United States, 181 U.S. 283294, and this is 1901 income tax, declared unconstitutional. 1901, including 1985, 1913, 1941 was a court case that we have up to. It's unconstitutional. But the only ones who can be charged state and federal or property tax or income tax is elected and public employees and, what was that? Contractors and registered church members. Because all registered church members support a tax write-off, so you got to keep that circulation going. That's how they do it. So it's like realizing and reading the real structures of what, why, and how your circumstances work. You know, so, but I wanted to get in a couple other things I want to bring in. Now, the original 13th Amendment, I'll have that posted. Title of nobility, that means any judge, cop, or anybody cannot be in office. Don't forget Executive Order 2040 that was passed in 1933, the Bankruptcy Act. Every resident, citizen, corporation is valued at $630,000. This was 1933. So if you're saying, I'm a national, sorry, buddy, you're an enemy to the people. If you say, I'm a citizen, you're an enemy to the people. See, this is the one thing you got to realize, that you're claiming a title of nobility, you are an enemy. That comes from the King of England. The King of England gives title of nobility, or at this point, the Queen of England. Of course, the Queen is not from England anyway. She's from, Germany. And once you realize that structure and you realize how the Queen was appointed during the German structure of the war back in, what was that, 1842? And we put this history up there, folks, for you, too. You know, and it's on our website, new.org of trackers, and, you know, our host is so nice to put this stuff up, and so we get to educate ourselves. And then, I don't know, I think we have the Natural Born Citizen Explained YouTube video, and that's done by a professor. Explains that, because then that way we don't have to have foreigners in office. That's why everybody's panicking, because they went after Trump, trying to go after him because he went after, Muslims and foreigners in office. You know, all these Democrats are going, all these people have a right to be in office. Their religion, that's religious crucifixion. No, it's not, folks. Your religion, I don't give a shit what the hell it is. Timbuktu. You believe in some God, all right? Your some God cannot be in office. I'm running for office. Of course, I have no opinion about God because there is no God, so I separate church and state right off the bat. Oh, I won't have an issue with that one. I won't have a conflict of morals. Oh, the child, the woman can't have an abortion. God says she can't. Sorry, folks, it's her body. Oh, I always heard this argument she's got a new person or new being living in her, so it's, excuse me, it doesn't change. It's her body. Is a man who mated with a woman, made the wrong decision, that's life he has to live with. So I want to get into, and this is the other point I'm going to be getting into when I'm running for office, dealing with the Oregon Treaty of 1846. And people don't comprehend this or get this. Now, when June 15, 1846, when the treaty was signed with the natives of the Oregon Territory and the British government. See, people don't realize that these things were signed by natives, not just the white man. So that's the issue. The white man issue is always comes up with people, and it's not white, it's not black, it's not Chinese. There's no such thing as color. The Constitution and the treaties do not recognize a color. Once you comprehend color does not exist, there's no racism. Hey, end of story. So all federal land patents shall flow from the treaties. So this is the one thing, like with the Bundys are arguing with some of their land patents now that are going to go on, and they're going to have a few more coming up, going on their structure, because they have to prove their bloodline. And I've already had some conversations with other people around that issue, and people are like, well, why do they have to prove it? Well, they have to prove it because they're claiming land, and they sold federal property called uranium. That property ain't theirs. I know. Back in 2005, I was at the Oregon State Senate and House when I met with some of the group on that with Senator Gary George's office. Yes, I personally did. I was involved in that shit, and I saw it was coming up. So I told Gary it was a trap coming up. And I told him that back then. Told that to many senators and congressmen, but, you know, oh, Ed, we're creating jobs. And I said, that's creating treason. Of course, I was shunned off, you know. I mean, and I figured most of these people knew it, but like I said, you know, 20 years later, 30 years later, I realized that most of these people didn't even have proper education. School system failed them. Just like your school system is failing your kids today. So that's the one thing is, remember, state, water, land, and sea, and air, it's all up in the air. Soil you can taste. Soil you grow food on. Land you do not. Read the legal definition in the dictionary of land. Type in the legal definition. You'll be amazed when you start reading and comprehending the real truth compared to what you're deciding on. So I want to get back into this. And this, like I said, I'm hard on when it comes to religion. I admit to that one. You know, people tell me, well, Ed, you can't always be that hard. You can't always do that. You know, what about the people who believe in religion? That's your constitutional right, not privilege, right. But it's my constitutional right to say it don't exist. It's my constitutional right to say I don't have to believe in fairy tales. The only one that gives us laws and administrative rules and all this stuff is the Constitution and treaties. And don't forget, administrative rules technically didn't start until 1940. Type in your 1940 Administrative Rule Act. When you start reading this stuff, you start being amazed to knowing how the real system works, how the real world works. See, back in 1871, there was technically 21 states that were formed. The rest of the United States in 1870, 1871, 1878, 1890 were not states. They were free territories. So, and then 1890 is when they started putting all the states in the category. And this is all the historical facts. These are all on records. So back in the 1890s, you had about 100 lawyers for 21 states. But those were all in the East Coast. They weren't on the West Coast. You know, I think the longest law firm we got in San Francisco was 1891 or 1890. And you got to remember the foundations of the law firms for the West Coast. These people came from the East Coast out here, put up a shingle and says, I'm a lawyer. On the West Coast, what do? We handled that with a gun or a fight. You know, we didn't sit there and ask for permission. If you did wrong, you hurt my child, then I had the right to defend my child. So, and I'm going to be putting this up tonight, too, so you guys get it. Federal judge declared policy. Policing for profit is a crime. And so, and I've got to write this up tonight with a couple other people I'm working on to get this mailed out to them. But the point being, or emailed out to them, and it's like, you got to realize that when they put this stuff in writing, use it. People say, don't use this. I mean, you know, there's other groups out there that, you know, I mean, I watch these groups, and I don't want to get into, you know, a lot of these guys' names and groups and start doing this, tearing them up. But I'm pissed when these people are out there convincing you that you need to have some type of structure going on. You need to have your thing registered in some corporation house. You write your instrument up. You file your criminal charges. The cop pulls you over, and that's what I got to get these other things going here real quick. Cop pulls you over, and you send it into court, and the court wants to send another court date. All right, then you write up the court charges on the judge for active treason and terrorism. And then that has to go into that state Supreme Court. People say, oh, no, you email it back to the judge. No, the judge responded to you. Then you file it to his boss. I'm trying to get you guys to comprehend how the system real works compared to the fantasy that people are living in. See, too many people live in fantasy. Very few people live in reality. So seeing that the cop responded with a letter saying, oh, we're going to set a new court date up. Now you got your response that he's going against and committed treason. So because the judge or the cop wants to commit treason, now you have to file the criminal charge. See, that is the one thing you want to file the criminal charges on these people. If you don't file these criminal charges on these men and women, you're allowing them to commit treason, racketeering, fraud, extortion, theft of public records. That's like what Nancy Pelosi did. She sat there and tore up public records. Now it's hitting in the media that, you know, she should be charged with a crime, a federal crime. You know, that is the one thing that you want to be able to do, this federal crime. You have to charge them. You know, it's interesting. I'll send this guy information, but I love these people that contact me from foreign countries. But I hate to tell you, folks, the Constitution don't work in your country. Let's be quite honest here. You are not an American. You might be what you might want to call an American citizen. But look at the term citizen. A citizen is owned by the British government, the Queen of England. A citizen has no rights, period, whatsoever. End of story. Done deal. So when people get on these tangents and say, well, I have a right, the only ones that have right in the United States, of this country, is Native Americans. And that does not mean Indian. And if you don't comprehend that, read the 14th Amendment. Because the 14th Amendment, when it really came down to, was a discrimination over, what was that? Slavery. And so the black, when they changed the large C to the small c, and they still kept slavery and corporation. So that's the one thing that just stuns me, how people don't comprehend how you're still under corporation slave because you didn't file your rights. So anyhow, I'm looking for something and getting into a couple things, and then we're going to open up the channel here in a minute. But I want to get something. And then this virus is interesting with this virus we got running around our country from China. I hate to tell you, folks, that was not just an isolated issue. That was done deliberately. They did that to throw your term and your attention away from what's going on with Trump and the Democratic Party. They're doing this to have your attention go into a different direction, so this way they can control you in your mind thinking, because now they're bringing out all this stuff with Trump and the Democratic Party right now, and people don't know what to think, who's to tell the truth, what is the truth, and how is the truth. What is the truth? So this is the one thing you got to comprehend. Now, when it comes back, and I want to get people to start getting this clarified to them, the British Bankruptcy Act, okay, of 1933, the Queen of England, or the King at that time of England went bankrupt to our country, to we the people, and that's Title 28USC3002, Section15 ABC, and read it. Because that is a British corporation. It is not an American structure. And I've got this, and I will send it to you. I'm going to send it to this guy in Wales. But it's always interesting what gets to me about these people that contact me from other countries. They think they have rights. And that's the one thing, that you don't have rights in the United States if you're not a native. So anyhow, I want to bring to your attention 18 U.S.C. 2071. And it's clear. And this is the one thing that it brings in the deal where how these public employees made a federal tragedy with a federal document, destroying documents. And this is the one thing that we'll put up a title plate. I'll try to get that written up here in the next couple of days. So I'll put it up on the website. So if you want to do it, you can autograph your own and send it in, and send it to the Supreme Court. You want to send it to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., as well as the court in California called the Ninth Circuit Court. You want to file the criminal charges with the judges themselves. But U.S.C. 2071 is extremely clear the way it's written. Nancy Pelosi destroyed a document, so that committed a federal crime. That's a felony. Felonies are capital offense. So I will get this out to you. I've got some other associates of mine who wrote it out and brought up. And the other one you could always look at, National MUT Insurance Company of District of Colorado versus Tidewater Transfer Company 337 U.S. 582, and this is 1949. I will be putting up these court cases, even though that sometimes me and this group have different opinions sometimes, but it's always funny. We might have a different opinion at one time, but we always come back on the same deal, that we have an opinion, but then we always argue our point back to the same point that we're agreeing to the point that we argued. So, but like I said, when it comes to these things, you have a legal obligation and you have a lawful right that you could serve the Supreme Court on these people. You could say to the Supreme Court you want a grand jury to investigate this. You want indictments of a grand jury, and here's your evidence. And you can file this stuff as a lawful native. You can actually yourself, you can file your criminal paperwork. And that's the one thing, you're looking at this United States Code 2071. Read it, and I'll get it posted up tonight on the website, the YouTube channel, so you can see what's going on. You know, and it's amazing because, I mean, I watch a lot of these talk shows up, and I post my stuff with them all the time, usually months before they start bringing out some of their stuff, and it's always interesting when you watch them bring up the evidence and the stuff they talk about, and I always love listening to them because I know for a fact where they got it. Because they got it by following me. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to quote the codes. They wouldn't be able to read this stuff because nobody else does this stuff and reads this stuff and brings it out like I do. So, like I said, I'll be posting this stuff on the YouTube channel, so that way everybody gets a chance to watch it and to go over it. And file your criminal charges. You man, woman, you have a right to file these criminal charges on these domestic terrorists. Because that's the one thing, they work for you. And once you accept that they are your servants, they are not your master. And that is the one thing that people put this stuff up and say that, oh, I'm giving my authority over. When you give your authority over, that says you have no rights, you're a child. And that's the one thing that you guys got to get this through your head, because you're sitting there saying you're a child. You know, I mean, I help people out all the time writing these court cases, bringing these stuff to light. And most people are not comprehending the real truth. And everybody keeps going back to God. God, who's God? Hear me out for a change. Whose God are you talking about? Because when you go after these people, like these people on the talk show, I was just on the talk show with them yesterday, Wednesday, Tuesday, you know, and I keep going after these people. What right do you have? And I always love these people in foreign countries, you know. They're putting up our Constitution, our treaty, like it belongs to them. You're under the Queen of England laws. You have no rights whatsoever. You're in Australia, New Zealand. You're not part of the United States. You cannot use our administrative code. See, our U.C.C. 207 and Y308 is for the United States. It doesn't say international law. And, you know, people go, well, that was part of international law. It got brought into it. No, it didn't. It got publicized into it because people publicized it, but it's not international law. See, once you start reading what lawyers are all about, and remember, international law, you cannot participate in the United States of the 48 states. We have a constitution and a treaty. We are not international law. And these guys will tell you, oh, you can go to international law and you file this. Well, when you do, you file it, and you find out very quickly when the government sends you a letter back, says there's nothing we can do. And that's the one thing that people don't get. And then they get upset because they're getting this letter saying there's nothing they can do because you never filed and proved that you were native, and you didn't file that you had a right to file criminal charges for being an injured man or woman. And I'll be posting this up too on the YouTube channel with the Criminal Division Employment for the United States Department of Justice. So I want you to comprehend, and I'll post up the other stuff eventually tonight or next talk show next week, dealing with immigration rights, about who can work in our country. You know, the only ones that have lawful or legal rights to work in this country is Native Americans. Yeah, you can get a work visa, but you have to ask permission from we the people. We the people own this country. You know, like I said, and I'll repeat myself, I cannot come into your home, put my flag on your table, and dictate to you that I'm going to live, this is the way we're going to live. You're not going to allow me to come in and take over your house. That's the same thing with immigrants coming to our country. You don't have a right to our country. You don't have a right to our food. You don't have a right to our water. Because I'm not in your country dictating you how to live, and you cannot come into my country and dictate to me how I'm living. And that is the one thing that folks have got to start coming to the reality. I mean, Trump just proved it. That's what Pelosi just got shut down about. The Republican Party just shut down the Democratic Party. I'm hoping that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party end. You know, once we get the democracy ended of the Treaty of 1846, then have that treaty live, and we get the structure of the Civil War with the two treaties with the British government and ourselves, you know, going back to the original structure of the original Constitution, because religion has no right in a courtroom. Religion has no right in any structure of our system at all. Anybody who's pushing religion, I would not trust them. Because that means they're 501c3 and they're out for their own personal gain. You know, I am so glad to watch these Facebook sites that are posting up, dealing with statute codes and administrative rules and the structure and how these things, and I'm watching a lot of these things popping up more and more and more on Facebook, you know, and I know where most of you guys got your information. You're welcome. And that is the point. We are proud to be part of this structure, to say that we are glad to see you're posting this. But please quit talking about God. God didn't give you these rights. The Native Indians gave you this right with the British government, who raided this country. You know, I mean, that's the one point, and I got to bring it up before I open up the deal. I mean, when you look at the real structures of our country, the real structures, we were invaded, terrorized. We had people come into this country, and I'm not speaking just as, you know, I'm speaking as a native, or even if I was not a native. You know, I come into your house, I have to respect. I can't sit there and come into your house and dictate to you how you're going to live. And that's what most people do today. They dictate to you how you're going to live, and people go along with it. So that's the saddest part, that when people go along with this structure, and then you wonder why you have problems in your home. So anyhow, I'm going to post a lot of this other stuff up. I got new information I'll be posting up on the YouTube channel tonight on the court systems. So that way, when you can always bring them up and you have questions on the court systems, we'll bring this up. You got to realize there's 6 structures in the court system. I will have that publicized out there for the general public, because there are 6 structures of the court system. That's why, you know, and I'll put those up, and you can publicize them too. But also, too, when you go to court, you want to know what court system you go on. You want to know what jurisdiction. What jurisdiction is this public employee employed? And remember, always direct them as a public servant. The minute you say, hey, judge, you gave your authority to that man or woman, and you said you were a slave. It doesn't matter what you put in record. See, and that's the one thing, when the attorney and the judge speak up, the first words out of your mouth is, I object. And the judge might ask you, what are you objecting to? I'm objecting to this corporation court. I have no evidence to prove I'm proceeding in a lawful bloodline native court. I have no evidence that I'm proving in a court of grand jury jurisdiction. You get these guys out there that are arguing with me right now today on the internet going, oh, Ed doesn't know what he's talking about that. We have to comply. We have to do this. Well, it's interesting, you know, I've been working with people, and it's interesting when, you know, we get through a couple of these passages, then they never hear from the court system again. And then when we file the criminal charges on them, everybody panics. It's just amazing how everybody panics. So, but anyhow, I would like to open up the floor. We'll go from there. And
all participants are unmuted.
Anybody got any questions?
Ed.
Yes.
Oh, what was that about you said earlier? What was it? I believe it was Title 42, Section 1988.
Title 42, 1988, and which capacity are you asking that question on?
I was just wanting you to go over it again, because I didn't quite catch all of that. I didn't, something about, what was it? Something about suing the judge, but in their own capacity.
Okay, let me get back over to that one. I'll reread that one. But yeah, you want to ask the judge on what his authority is. You want to file with the judge on the authority of his capacity to even hear this court case. You want the judge to prove his jurisdiction, and that is dealing with, I got to get back to the title, but public officer, a United States representative, that's your senator, congressman, anybody like that, are public officers of the United States. They are public officers, so they're no different than a police officer. And you got to remember, your House of Representatives are defined in court system and in your dictionary as a public officer of the United States. So they are the same structure as a cop. And it's like when I used to hang out with Senator Gary George, he says, don't you realize, I'm the guy that's your enemy. We take our information, so we got a job. So this is how we screw you. I mean, he knew what was going on. He had some fun with people on it. And that is Title U.S.C. Code 2071. And this is the one thing that you have to realize, that if you are a public servant, and of course I know I won't get elected, but I'm going to go out and have some political fun, because people don't want me elected, because I couldn't pass administrative rules unless it passed the mustard under constitutional oath. Or the only other way it could pass administrative rule if it was done by non-corporation members. I can't sit there and be a participant of the corporation. I won't do it. But also, too, that was Nationals Mutt Insurance Company, District of Colorado, versus Tidewater Transfer Company, 337, United States 582. This is a court case 1949. So this is the one thing that is to comprehend this point when these administrative rules are. When you're filing your court cases and stuff, you could definitely add these things in it. People say it doesn't make a difference. That's up to you if you want to listen to these people. But a clerk, an officer, public employee, a senator, congressman, including an aide. We forgot one major one in this. Anybody who's a lobbyist is the same category as a public officer. I know, I've been a lobbyist, and you do sign your rights over in your contract as a public lobbyist, but that's the one thing. When I was a public lobbyist, I did not sign my contract over to them. I held my rights as a public lobbyist, and that's why Commissioner Terry Thompson and Kay Brown and everybody attacked me in 2015 and tried to put me in federal prison, and that didn't work, because it's knowing how to protect thy ass. And that's the one thing you got to remember. A person is an inanimate object. Okay, and when you're a retired officer, a retired public employee, don't forget to file for your rights, installing your rights back in place. If you are an immigrant, you will never have rights, and they can deport you even after that time. That's what Pelosi didn't want known. That's why she tore up that deal when she was going to go after Trump on filing on Trump. And the only reason why Trump was brought up on original charges is because the Queen of England, wake up, folks, wake up, the Queen of England told the Democratic Party, you do it, because remember, the Democratic Party is still under the Queen of England. I don't care what these idiots out there want to try to tell you, what they tried to do on his talk show yesterday and Wednesday. It's still under the Queen of England. Look at your history. Read the laws. And so if you want the information, send me your email. I'll send you. I just emailed out a whole bunch of information to 5 other people, buried them with a lot of structure. But read this. And remember, the one thing is the state officers have no constitutional oath to participate or to practice as a lawyer. State officers have no constitutional authority to practice as a lawyer, barrister, activist, or selector. That means a lobbyist. These are laws that I bring up and I bring to your attention. They have no authority. Only if you grant them authority, you get them. So if you're claiming you're an attorney, you have no rights to practice law, and that is a federal court case, and we bring that up. And let's not forget the American Bar Association in 1871 is still run and controlled by the Queen of England. So anybody else would like to bring up anything else, you can always speak up anytime. Don't be bashful. Okay. With that, let's not forget that the Maritime Junction in 1887, John Adams was the ambassador to France who wrote the John Adams proposing. And I'm going to put this in the website tonight so that way you can see on the YouTube channel. You can read this yourself. You know, dealing with the Maritime Admiralty Court of John Hancock in the case and how the Colonel of Boston involved in the seizure of one of Hancock's ships. Remember, this goes back to the British government taking one of Hancock's own personal ships, violating customs regulations. Supreme Court, and this was a trial case in 1791. So, you know, I put this up because remember, the British government, when they were putting this structure in, they had to put in their structure in. And that's the way, you know, we used to do, and they used to call it the Wild Wild West because we didn't put up with people's shit. We didn't go to court. You stole from us, we beat the shit out of you, threw you back on the street. I don't have to go to court when I already know you stole from me. You know, but if I wasn't able to prove you stole from me, I couldn't beat the shit out of you. And that's the point that people need to know. And then to read 28 U.S.C. Code 1333. Admiralty, maritime, and prize cases. So, and this is how they get away with stealing your house, your boat, your child. 28 U.S.C. Code 1333. That's how they steal your children from you. It's an abandoned ship. It's an abandoned vessel. You didn't claim that property. You didn't claim your bloodline. That's how they get around with it. So you have to own yourself. You have to own your bloodline. You have to claim your property. If you don't claim your property as abandoned property or abandoned vessel, that's how they get away with it in court. But they don't read this stuff in court like this. They read it totally different. But that's when you file in your paperwork when your kid is kidnapped or stolen and taken for ransom. You're right. Who took it? And you write this court case in. You know, how it works, how the relation of seasons. Incorporation section of 1356 of this title gives them the right to take it because you didn't claim your property. And remember, like I said, once you register your child with the state, you give authority to the state. You don't own that property anymore. The state takes property, and that's how the state attorney general and all the lawyers presume that that property is their personal liability to make profit on their birth certificate strawman account to bounce you around in court. So like I said, I'll be putting this stuff in the YouTube channel tonight so people can read it, especially the 13th Amendment, and research the stuff I'm putting up. You can see that I'm putting the real facts up. I'm not putting up hearsay. And so research it. And that's the one thing you want to make sure on the 13th Amendment, you know, that you own yourself. You have the rights to do this. And so, like I said in your email, I'll send you the laws. I'll send you the information. You can copy and paste this stuff for yourself. Keep it in records, including the banks. And remember, all the banks have an EIN number, and that includes your birth certificate, bond, insurance policy. So, anyhow, nobody else has nothing to say with that. We'll call it an evening then. And so with that, may the Creator look over you. May Mother Earth feed you. And may the Father bring your children to you and give you some safety ideas. Learn how to protect your family. You know, Mother, Creator, and the Great Spirit. Without Great Spirit, we have no children. Without the Creator, we don't live. And especially without Mother, we don't have life. And remember, carbon tax, the carbon tax that these morons want you to vote on and trying to get you to go along, you're a carbon unit. You vote for that. You say to kill me. You say I don't have a right to life. It's exactly what you're saying to the general public and the world, that you're a moron. Because you believe in a carbon tax that you have to pay the privilege of life. Anyhow, with that, we'll call it an evening.
All participants are muted.
All right, all you carbon-based life forms, which you look into science, and that is exactly it. So a carbon tax means that you yourself are taxed to live, as Ed was saying, but he didn't get the whole scientific term of carbon-based life forms. But, anyways, thank you for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. It is February 8th, 2020. It is a Saturday, and we'll hope to see you next Saturday if you've got time. With that, I'm going to say goodbye.